I'll never forget the look on my son's face when his birthday party came crashing down around him one minute. There was laughter, children playing in the bounce house, parents chatting over punch. The next, a shrill voice cut through it all, like a knife. This gathering is unauthorized. You're in violation of at least 7 HOA regulations. The woman marched across my lawn in her crisp pants suit clipboard, in hand face twisted with righteous indignation. Children froze, mid-aim parents exchanged confused glances. My 7-year-old Ethan stood motionless, the birthday hat on his head suddenly looking ridiculous as tears welled in his eyes. "I'm shutting this down right now," she announced to the entire gathering, not a hint of empathy in her voice. "Or I'll call the authorities." She turned to face me, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. "Perhaps next time you'll remember the proper channels for event approval, and maybe remember to invite the HOA president," as she stormed off. The damage was done. Parents were already gathering their confused children, making awkward apologies as they left. My son's special day was ruined, the carefully arranged decorations, now just sad reminders of what should have been. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning of my nightmare, with Karen Williams, HOA president and self-appointed neighborhood dictator. It had all started so promisingly. Just 1 week earlier, after months of searching, I'd finally found the perfect home for Ethan and me, a modest 3-bedroom in Oakwood Estates with good schools and what seemed like friendly neighbors. As a single dad starting over, I was determined to make this move positive for my son. "This is our fresh start, buddy," I told him. As we unpacked, "We're going to make lots of friends here." The birthday party seemed like the perfect opportunity to integrate ourselves into the community, meet the other families, let Ethan connect with potential classmates before school started. I spent days planning everything, delivering invitations to every house on our block that appeared to have children, ordering a bounce house that complied with all the measurements listed in the welcome packet, even checking noise ordinances to make sure our modest celebration wouldn't disturb anyone. The one invitation I deliberately didn't deliver was to 1422 Oakwood Drive, the home of Karen Williams. We'd already had our first run-in just 2 days after moving in, when she left a typed notice on my door about trash cans being left to the curb 14 hours and 23 minutes past collection time. The notice included a photograph of my bins and a timestamp when I called the number listed to explain we were still moving in. She informed me that rules don't have a grace period and that I should consider this a warning. The morning of Ethan's party arrived with perfect weather, sunny but not too hot, with just enough cloud cover to keep the bounce house from becoming an oven. I arranged tables and chairs in the backyard, hung streamers from the modest pergola, and set up a small barbecue well away from any structures, exactly per the guidelines in my HOA packet. By noon, children were arriving with presents and parents with potluck contributions. For the first time since our move, I felt like we might actually belong here. 2 hours into the party, the atmosphere was everything I'd hoped for. Parents were exchanging phone numbers, kids were forming impromptu teams for games, and Ethan was beaming with happiness, surrounded by potential new friends. That's when the gate to my backyard swung open and Karen Williams strode in, like she owned the place. Conversations died, children sensed the tension and quieted down. She made a show of looking around, jotting notes on her clipboard, taking photos with her phone. "Excuse me," I said, approaching her with a forced smile. "Can I help you with something? You're in violation of noise ordinances, exceeding permissible gathering size without proper approval, and that inflatable structure requires special permission," she said without looking up from her clipboard section. 8 paragraph 4 of the HOA bylaws clearly states that any gathering exceeding 12 people requires board notification at least 5 business days in advance. I maintained my composure, very aware of the audience we now had. I checked the bylaws before planning this. "There's no such requirement for private family events." Her eyes narrowed. "Are all these people family, their neighbors, and their children?" "It's a kid's birthday party," I explained calmly, and I specifically checked about the bounce house with the rental company. They confirmed it meets all HOA requirements for temporary structures. Karen's face flushed slightly. "Well, I didn't receive an invitation." Now it made sense. I hesitated, then decided honesty was best. "This is a children's party, Karen. We invited neighbors with kids Ethan's age." That was the moment her expression changed from annoyed to something darker. She smiled thinly, tapped something into her phone and said, "We'll see about that." Before turning on her heel and marching out, I tried to salvage the mood, assuring everyone it was fine, but a heaviness had settled over the gathering. One parent whispered to me, "You shouldn't have crossed her. She's got connections with the city council." I didn't take it seriously until 2 hours later, when a city official and a police officer arrived at my door. The officer looked uncomfortable as he explained they'd received multiple complaints about noise, potential fire hazards, and most ridiculously serving alcohol to minors. The city official had a clipboard full of alleged code violations. Parents began gathering their children, immediately making hasty goodbyes. Ethan watched his party disintegrate, clutching his unopened presents as tears rolled down his cheeks from her front porch across the street. Karen watched the whole scene unfold, arms crossed, satisfaction evident even from a distance. When our eyes met, she actually raised her teacup in a mock toast. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a missed invitation or misinterpreted bylaws. This was personal. Now the next few days were a whirlwind of damage control. I received an official HOA violation notice with potential fines totaling over $800. Several parents texted to say they were sorry about what happened, but couldn't risk getting on Karen's bad side. Ethan asked if we could move again instead of letting it defeat me. I channeled my frustration into research. I started with the HOA bylaws, reading them. Cover to cover, I discovered that many of Karen's rules weren't actually in the official documentation. Next, I created a private online group for Oakwood residents and was shocked at how quickly it grew. Dozens of neighbors had stories about Karen's reign of terror, selective enforcement, personal vendettas, even falsified records of violations. Most tellingly, the actual HOA board hadn't had a proper meeting. In over 18 months, Karen had been operating as a one-woman enforcement committee. My professional background in corporate compliance finally proved useful in my personal life. I meticulously documented every interaction, built a timeline of Karen's overreach, and collected statements from neighbors willing to go on record. Many were reluctant until I showed them the clause in the HOA charter that protected residents from retaliation. One elderly couple confided that Karen had threatened to report their non-compliant wheelchair ramp if they attended any board meetings with my case built. I submitted a formal complaint to the County HOA Oversight Committee and retained Patricia Onquo, an attorney specializing in homeowners association disputes. "This is actually one of the more egregious cases I've seen," she told me after reviewing my documentation. "The good news is there's a clear pattern of abuse of power here." While the legal wheels turned slowly, Karen seemed to sense something was happening. Her behavior became more erratic, her enforcement more aggressive. She began placing violation notices on homes almost daily, some for infractions as minor as grass, exceeding 4¼ inches, or unapproved shade of white paint on trim. Then came her fatal mistake. Dave Chen, who lived 2 doors down, had installed a doorbell camera after finding scratch marks on his front door, following a dispute with Karen over his Japanese maple tree. The camera caught her at 3 a.m. placing official-looking violation notices on several homes, notices that weren't actually from the HOA, but created by Karen herself to intimidate residents. Dave shared the footage with me, and I immediately forwarded it to my attorney and the county authorities 3 days later. As I was helping Ethan with homework, we witnessed Karen being escorted from her home by 2 police officers. The charges were multiple counts of harassment, falsifying documents, filing false reports with city officials, and criminal trespass. The neighborhood emerged from their homes to watch in stunned silence as the woman who had terrorized them for years was placed in the back of a police car. Karen spotted me standing on my lawn, and the look she gave me could have melted steel. The emergency HOA meeting that followed was attended by nearly every household, the remaining board members, mostly Karen's appointees who had turned a blind eye to her behavior, resigned in embarrassment. Karen was permanently removed from her position, banned from serving on any community board for 10 years, and ordered to pay $15,000 in legal fees in restitution to homeowners she had targeted when the judge announced the financial penalty. Karen's face crumpled in shock, her carefully maintained facade finally breaking as she realized the real-world consequences of her actions.